So listen, we're here for another episode of the Boss Juice podcast. Antonino and myself, we were both able to make it this time, which is fabulous because he makes it so much better. But we're going to interview a guest today who actually I've known for several years, and I met it through a mutual friend, and who was actually probably like a mentor as well to the person we're going to interview. Jason Ortitay. He is state rep representing the 46th district in Pennsylvania, and we're not going from a political approach here, and I just want to make that clear. Jason worked in the corporate world, and he also started his own small business. And I think Jason had been through a lot of little challenges and things like that we want to share with you, and talk about maybe resources and things like that through Jason's experience now as a public servant. Antonino, anything you want to add before we get Jason involved here?
No, I'm excited to get started. I got some questions.
All right. Well, let's roll. Jason, welcome to the show, and we're so glad to have you on here. And let's get started. Tell a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. It's always fun to be on these, and I've watched a couple of the other episodes. Honored to be a guest on here. Like you said, I'm a state representative for the 46th district. If anyone's wondering where that's in northern Washington County and southern Allegheny County. I represent about 66,000 people.
Wow.
There's 203 state reps in Pennsylvania, and I'm one of those. I've been in office for about 10 years now, so I'm in my fifth term. And before that, we've had a lot of fun. I think you mentioned that at the top of the show. When I got out of college, one of the first things I did, I worked for a mutual friend of ours who passed a couple years ago, who was my mentor coming out. I got into financial services, ended up at PNC for about 5 years, and then decided, hey, this corporate world just isn't for me. There was a lot of stuff, and we can dive into that later. But then I said, you know what? I'm young. Let's give it a shot. So started my own business, Jason's Cheesecake Company, and we operated that for about 8 years. Now, a lot happened over that time.
Yeah.
I got elected. I got married, started a family. It's like everything happens all in a row there. But, yeah, 2012 to 2020, we ran that business. It was great. I was able to bring my family into it. I had a lot of good times, but also got myself involved in the politics, got elected, got reelected, and reelected again. It's been a fun ride, starting a family, buying a house, moving into a bigger house, having a kid, another one on the way. It's all fun.
That's amazing. It's funny, this the ride that we take going through just normal life, all the different things. But I think that's one of the really cool things that helps shape you and the rest of us too. All these different padded experiences. And then when you get into an opportunity like you did with, running for office and then realizing how you can help people. But why don't you talk a little bit about the background with the Cheesecake Company and some of the different things that you ran into, good, bad, and otherwise, because I think that can help some of the entrepreneurs that are checking into our podcast.
Yeah, so, I got tired of the corporate world, and I kind of felt like I was underutilized, but I wanted to do my own thing. And everyone always asked me, why cheesecake? Cheesecake has always been my favorite dessert. Could never find a decent piece anywhere. So I said, you know what? I'm going to make it. I'm going to make my own recipe. And wouldn't it be wild to start my own cheesecake business, leaving PNC, have a pretty good job there in treasury management, and just starting this. I remember going to talk to my parents and telling them, hey, I'm gonna leave my salary job with full benefits to go start my own business. And they were supportive. I don't want to discount that, but I could kind of tell they were very nervous. I'm like, what's this guy doing now? But again, I was in my 20s, and I look at it this way, from a risk point of view. I wasn't married. I didn't have kids. I had no real financial commitments or responsibility. If not now, then when?
Yeah.
How far do I have to fall? So I dove head first. I put my notice in. I think it was right in the first or second week of December at PNC, because I could have easily stayed and done both. But I started selling them out of the back of my car and was trying to navigate the regulatory process about what I could do legally and stay out of trouble, because that's important. You don't want to go to jail. You don't want the police showing up at your house. So I did the paperwork. I asked Jim a little bit kind of about what to do, how to get things set up. And then as you're doing more research, because every state's kind of different, and even every county's kind of different how they do this. It's like, I need to find a commercial kitchen. I can't make these in my own kitchen. And where am I going to store them? I have a tiny apartment. I can't store all this stuff there. So as time went on, you navigate your way through the system and realize, all right, I need to find a place to rent. I obviously am not going to be able to afford to build my own commercial kitchen or find another place that's huge. So I did that. Started up in Beaver County, up in Old Economy Village. Great couple up there. They were looking. It wasn't a huge kitchen. It was probably about as big as this room that we're in now, but it served the purpose. And then I was able to do storage up there for a little bit, deep freezers, making sure everything's put away that it's like the way that it's supposed to be. But then you come to find out, not only do you need a state inspection, you need a local inspection, which, again, I don't have any problem paying the fee. It's the time. Because now you have to make sure that you schedule time with the local inspector, even though this inspector is going to come back and do the same thing that the other inspector just did from the state. And you're sitting there wondering, like, this is so stupid. Like, it's the same thing. Can't they just share the report? Like, I'll pay the fee. I don't care about that, but let's just get through this as quickly as possible. So we go through that, and that was interesting. So for a few years, we operated that way. But as time went on, it became harder and harder to be able to drive all the way up there because I had moved around a couple of times. And I'm like, all right, at some point in time, if we're really going to take this to the next level, I've got to find a kitchen that's either closer, bigger, or I got to do my own thing. And that was right around the time that this whole running for office thing kind of came up. Because I can sit here and tell you, honestly, before, I really had no desire to run for public office. Like, my grandfather always preached to me, like, hey, public service, you should give back. If you don't go in the military, you should do something. So when I was approached, I thought it was an interesting idea. And I'm sitting there like, well, yeah, I own my own business. I think at the time, the Affordable Care Act was all the rage about people losing their insurance, how it was affecting small businesses. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, with kind of what I've gone through so far, it would make sense. Like, if I ran, I could kind of run on that platform of small business and helping them navigate this very confusing system. So I did run while I was running the business. And I remember going through the campaign, and I'll just kind of summarize it here. At the night that I won, they call you, you get this phone call and you're like, yeah, hey, congratulations, you won. And I was talking on the phone with a reporter from the Observer reporter. It was either that or the Post Gazette, I don't remember. And they said, well, what are you going to do tomorrow? I said, well, I got a bunch of orders. I got to go in the kitchen. So that's where I'll be tomorrow morning making cheesecake for the rest of the weekend. So that's kind of how my political career launched after I won. But it's been my baby when I started it. A lot of people who start their own business, it's like having a child.
Absolutely.
It's a lot of work. It's a labor of love. You're everything to this business, and you started it like it's your name. Obviously, I thought much of it because I put my name on it, and you want it to succeed. And I think for me, that fear of failure is what drives me. That agony of defeat, not the thrill of victory.
Yeah.
It's that I don't want to lose. Like, I don't want to be viewed as a failure that keeps driving me on and on. And I think it was around that time that we had met. Like, I think right before, because you had helped me with some of the campaign material. Yeah. But just trying to come up with brochures and have something that's a consistent brand that that all kind of tied together, because it wasn't that natural for me. Like, I have an MBA, but marketing wasn't my specialty. Mm-hmm. So having someone like you and Jim and you guys to kind of bounce ideas off of and move forward, that was really helpful for me, especially at the beginning. Because after that, I was able to grow the business. I never got it to where I felt like, yeah, we've reached my goal. Because by the time we hit there, I had changed kitchens again, closer to home. And then finally used my grandfather's old gas station and completely retrofitted it to make it the kitchen that I needed. And went through all the inspection process all over again, which was really fun. But it was nice because I was able to I was making enough money from the business where I was able to invest and buy the ovens, buy the cooling racks, put in a new electrical, put on a new roof, do all these things and reutilize a building that was basically just wasting away. So it worked out really well there, and then COVID hit. We were on the verge of doubling our sales from the year before. COVID hit, shuts down everything. We were really big into fundraising, doing a lot of work with the schools and the nonprofits, and of course all that stuff got shut down. So on the legislative end, I'm dealing with that. And I had actually come up and worked with doctors from several different hospital systems about a reopening plan. And there was a little bit of buzz about that So I'm not the kind of elected official who is the flashy guy out there looking to make someone look bad. That's not me. Like, I'm here to help. Like, I want to help people. So I talked to these people. I had put together a nice little reopening plan at the time. Again, hindsight's 2020. You can, where you are in COVID is where you are. But at the time we're going through this, everything was closed. So I present this reopening plan to the governor and his chief of staff. And it clearly says draft on there, and it has my name on it. But somehow it got leaked to the press. And the press is having a field day with this, thinking this is the new reopening plan. And some papers kind of ran with it, saying, well, this is the governor's new plan. Well, and then they would post the plan. And I'm like, one, how did they get it? Because I didn't give it to them. And two, if they actually read it, it would say draft plan and has my name on it. It doesn't have the governor's name on it. So, never one to mince words as a politician, the governor's chief of staff starts taking shots at me saying, this is a Republican who's throwing this out there. Like, don't pay any attention. This is just them making noise. And I'm like, dude, I just talked to you on the phone like a couple of days ago. Like, I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt by showing you the plan as if this is useful for you, great. If it works, fantastic. Like, I'm here to help. But if you don't want to work together, that's fine too. But you don't need to throw me under the bus.
Yeah.
So after he did that, I'm like, fine, I'll just release a plan and say, hey, I've talked to doctors and people in the field. This is how I think we can open up. Yes, I had a vested interest because I wanted to reopen and I wanted schools to reopen too. But at the same time, I didn't want anyone to die. So that was a fun part of that too. But once we got into, I would say, probably the end of 2020, I could see the writing on the wall. I had lost 75% of my business in sales, and I don't think there was really any way to make up for that. But at the same instance, when one door closes, another opens. My daughter was born in December of 2020, and it just made the transition a little bit easier. I remember talking to my wife about it and saying, you know what, I think it's time. All the signs are pointing to, let's just close it up. We don't have the time to devote toward it anymore. We got a baby coming. I got another term in office I need to get ready for. And sadly, we made that tough choice to close the business down. But, for 8 years, it was fun. Yeah. It was therapeutic for me to be in the kitchen. Towards the end there, maybe not so much, but it was really fun. And for me, 8 years to last, I didn't achieve my goals, but you know what? I learned a heck of a lot, and it's really helped me in my role now.
How so?
Well, just going through all the different processes you have to go through, all right, what kind of corporation or company do you file with the IRS? You got to get your EIN number. You got to go through all the inspections. You got to file your taxes and make sure you're paying them appropriately. Do you have workman's comp? Because what if someone gets burned? Do you have liability insurance? Because what if somebody gets sick off of your food and they sue you for it? Now, that never happened to me, but you have to be careful about that. Depending on how you're structured as a business. So you learn about that. So tax rates, bureaucracy, all the stuff and all the fees that you have to pay. And then how do you really start a business? Are there incentives out there for you? Are there resources, state, local, federal resources available for you? Just getting to know people, by working with a lot of the schools and seeing their need for fundraising, that all right, do we need to fund schools more? What do they really need help with? What do these organizations need help with? It really helped me branch into the community and meet people that I never would have met otherwise.
So going off that, did you ever see a point in time where your political career interfered with your business? Was there any negative impact from that?
Oh yeah, all the time, because my job's 24/7. I mean, I really don't have any off days. And if you're going to do this job right, you've got to focus on it. And you're getting calls and texts and emails throughout the night, early in the morning. It really doesn't matter. And, what I try to do is usually take a weekend, and that's where I would do all the baking. And sometimes that just wasn't realistic, especially with some of the holidays, Veterans Day or Memorial Day, you're always being asked to speak, to go somewhere, to, talk to an organization, to meet with people. And, look, this was my job. It was my number one priority. So I had to kind of push it to the back burner. But be honest with you, my wife really picked up and helped out a lot between her, my parents, my sister-in-laws, my sister. It was a family affair. So where I had to kind of step out for a little bit, they all stepped up, and it really made it work. But yeah, there were definitely some moments where it did stop me from doing some things I wanted to do. But in all honesty, look, I was elected to represent the people. That's my priority over my business. And I didn't want people to think that, I'm sitting over here oh yeah, my business is it is important, but you elected me for this job, and that's more important.
Right. So,
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, just going to say, so some of the advice that I've been given as a young entrepreneur is that people say, focus on one thing, get that business going, then move on to the next. And you're interesting because you started this business and then you picked up this kind of new political career, and obviously it took up a lot of your time. Do you ever have regrets around the idea of maybe had I not taken this political path, where your business would have been today?
No, I feel like everything that I've done, I would do it all over again. I think too, I'm really, if you know me, you'll understand this. I'm really regimented. So when I'm focused on something, I'm focused on it, and I make sure that I break down my day accordingly. Adding something else to it just makes me more disciplined. Even though I'm the kind of guy who hates the 9-to-5 job, like I don't want to be in a box where I got to go do the same thing every single day. Both of these worlds allowed me to do something different every single day. There was no day that's the same. Even, I go to the kitchen and I make cheesecake. That's rinse and repeat. But when I go, how I do it, how I come up with new flavors, new recipes, that's all different. Same with legislation. Meeting with different people, coming up with different priorities, talking to people, figure out what's on their mind. It's always different. And like when I wake up the next day, I have maybe some meetings scheduled. But I'll tell you, it never ends up the way I expected it to.
Sure.
So I think, when you were, say, on the creative side, right, coming up with flavors and texture and things like that for the cake. And I even remember the teas cakes. Teas cakes were a mini version of the cheesecake sold in packs of 6 or something like that. And they were just something different. And I think it was a neat little tool. So bridging over to your public servant career, bridging over to there, how do you use that same creativity in pulling together either legislation or something like, there's got to be ties. I'd like to learn more.
Oh yeah. So, when you're trying to pass legislation, you've got to go make friends. Because you can't do it by yourself. You're one of 203 in the House. You got to get 102 votes in the House. You got to get 26 votes in the Senate. You got to get a governor to sign off on it. So getting legislation done, you've got to go find friends, whether they're in your own party or across the aisle. To me, it doesn't matter. Almost all of my legislation that I've had passed has been bipartisan. I don't think I've had a single bill that didn't have a Democrat vote on it. And I haven't had a single bill that didn't get a governor's signature on it. Which for me, throughout my career, has always been a Democrat governor. That part to me it's just learning how to build relationships and network, and be genuine about it. Like I genuinely care about people that I work with. They're people, everyday people just like me. They have families. They're trying to represent their constituents. I understand that. And it's just talking to them, so they understand what's really going on. And that it can be difficult too. And then the same with helping people. Like, we have floods all over the place, particularly down the street in Oakdale and down the street here in Houston as well. And, people come to you outside the scope of what government can offer. Like, how can we help? Can I go talk to a local company who might have some, hot water tanks they can donate? Yeah, I'm happy to have that conversation. We did this with the Canonsburg Police Department when they're trying to merge with Houston. Well, they both passed their budget and they needed $10,000 for administrative costs. Well, they didn't have it. And if they didn't do that, then there wouldn't be police in Houston. I was able to go out, reach out to my contacts, find someone who's willing to put up the money and give it to them as a grant. I mean, those are the types of things where you're trying to be creative and work outside the scope of maybe what a normal state representative would do or an elected official. Because anyone would normally just say, well, maybe I can find some money at the state. Maybe there's an existing grant program or something I can have them apply for, write a letter of support, and hopefully they'll get it in a year.
Yep. That's interesting to me because we've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners, and one of the things I notice is they're all resourceful. I think, as you understand, running a business, you have to be resourceful and figure out solutions. And they might not be pretty solutions, but you got to find a way. And finding money sometimes is one of the hardest things. Like, I got to make payroll, I got to pay this bill. You got to find the money. And I think that's an interesting correlation between business and your political career.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people say pay yourself first. I always felt guilty. I always paid my staff and my people first, because if they were happy,
right,
I knew I'd be fine, because they'd be producing and they'd be making money for me down the line. And it's the same, like, it's kind of the same principle here. If I can get creative and find creative solutions to people's problems here without having to wait a year or 2 years or 10 years to make it happen, then they're going to be better for it. And it's going to be helpful for everyone. And at the end of the day, I don't care if I get the credit for it. I just want it done because it's going to impact so many lives. And we've had a ton of examples of that over the last 10 years. But it took me it probably took me a solid year to kind of figure out, one, what the role is, like what authority and what kind of responsibilities do I really have as a state representative and an elected official? And then after that, it's, all right, what kind of elected official do I want to be? Do I want to grow into this egotistical, narcissistic person who just only cares about accumulating power and just moving up the chain? Or do I want to be the kind of person who really cares about the people that I represent and doing good things and giving back and helping out? And a lot of people say, like, how do you do this while maintaining your soul? And I think it's easy. You just stay on the path that you set for yourself. And when temptations come, and they always do, you just veer away from them. Because at the end of the day, you go back to one core value. What is best for the people in my district? Mm-hmm. It's not what's best for me. It's about what's best for the people in my district. Because there are times that come up where I put up votes that maybe necessarily that I wouldn't vote for, but it's not just about me. There's 60-some thousand people that I represent that, I've talked to a lot of people. I differ from my opinion and their opinion on this issue. I represent them. I've got to vote their will. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm here for. So it is a little bit different at times, but try to make it work as the best I can.
Right.
Well, I look at different pieces. Knowing you earlier, with the cheesecake business, when you're starting the business, I think part of that was we had to come up with a process, brand identity, all those wonderful things, right? But the other piece was there's some salesmanship involved in this, because you got to get the cash register needs to ring. Yeah. So you got to get in front of people, and you got to show that you're sincere, you trust your product and things like that. And I think I don't really remember the full process about getting vetted so you could throw your hat in the ring. But I remember we talked a long time ago about signatures and petitions and things like that. So you really had to get out there and let people see you for who you are, whether you were the cheesecake guy or whether you're serving in a public office now. Talk a little bit about how that cheesecake business maybe prepared you for beating the streets, so to speak.
Oh yeah. I mean, you as a business owner, you hear no a lot, and that's fine. You just can't let it define you. But and I consider myself very introverted. Wasn't a naturally outgoing person unless, I got to know you over a period of time. It was hard. Like, public speaking is not something that I really excelled at, and it made me nervous. I'll tell you a quick story about that in a little bit. But as you go through the process of just putting yourself out there, and, the stress and anxiety that you feel every time you approach someone to say, hey, would you be interested in, buying or selling or doing a fundraiser with my business? The key there, which always made it easier for me, is I would bring samples. Mm-hmm. And, who's going to say no to cheesecake? And I've had a couple people say no, but I mean, there's far and few between. But it was difficult to put yourself out there, because every time somebody said no, I took it personally. Yeah. Like, it was a shot against me as a person. And at the end of the day, you sit there and think, they don't even know me. Why am I internalizing this so much, right, and making it like, why am I wasting so much time on this? So transition that to the political side of it. When you're out there knocking on doors, asking people to sign your petition to get on the ballot, they don't know who you are. And you're just trying to give them like a quick elevator pitch, 30 to 60 seconds, like, hey, will you please sign my petition? I'm running for this seat. I want to do this and that. You hear no a lot. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, it took me a year or two to really, when I was running, to not internalize it so much. And I would, I'm not ashamed of it, I'd lose sleep over it. Mm-hmm. It's like, that person down this, I don't even know his name, Michael, whatever his name was. And he wouldn't sign this. Like, why didn't he like me?
Everyone talks about Michael.
Yeah. I mean, you just don't know. Yeah. And after a while, you get a little bit thicker skin. But I'll tell you this one story. It was in my very first term. We were doing this big panel, our small business package, small business reform. We wanted to help small businesses grow. And leadership comes to me and say, hey, we want to do a press conference in your district. Go find a business so we can set up. All of us will come down. There'll be like 10 of us, and we'll all take turns speaking, but you're going to be the spearhead of this. You're going to be the head of it.
Right.
I'm like, okay, I really haven't had to public speak before, let alone in front of a bunch of cameras. Sure. So we did it. We found a place down in Heidelberg. It was a little flooring shop. Set it up, and I remember walking in that room, and my colleagues are there. I see the camera set up. I think Channel 2's there, and I'm like sweating. Like, I got sweat pouring down my head. I'm like, maybe I need to change my shirt. I'm ready to have like a panic attack. And I remember, and you can still probably see the video. I think it's still up there. The first 30 seconds I'm talking on the microphone, and I had everything written down because I knew if I went up there without a script, I was just going to be a mess, because it's not my strong suit. And I felt and sounded like I was a stroke victim. I'm not quite sure what the first 30 seconds even came out of my mouth, but they were not coherent, and it was bad. And I always use that as motivation now. Is like, look at where I was and where I am now. Or I could barely look in front of a camera and speak in front of a camera. And that was probably my worst, to where I am now, fast forward 10 years later, where I think about it, but not nearly as much. It's just like, I feel like in business and in politics, you've got to put yourself through it. And once you get through it, you're like, your brain knows that you can do it. But without going through the experience and trying it first, sometimes you have that doubt. Like, you have the will to succeed, but you've got to push through those anxiety and panic-stricken moments where you're just like on the edge of like, do I like that fight or flight method there? Like, am I going to run out of here? Like, I don't like, they're calling me up there. Like, this is my last chance to like run out of that room and just call it a day. And it's like, everyone's counting on me. Like, they counted on me to put this together. They counted on me to get up there and talk from a small business perspective as a current small business owner. And I can't let them down. No matter how much I feel like I want to run away from this internally, I've got to stand up. Right. Like, this is my character. And, I equate that to my early wrestling days. I got beat up a lot. I lost a lot of matches through high school, but I always got up. And I always gave everything I had, and I left it out there. And I know that's kind of cliche to say, but you go back and see my record. I think I maybe won 20 matches in my high school career. I lost a heck of a lot more than I won. But I always tried, and, they always said that I was charismatic. And no matter who I was wrestling, I always gave everything I had, because I always thought there was a chance. Mm-hmm. There was a chance that I could stand up and maybe beat this, former state champion or whatever. And, there are moments where I feel like I overperformed and did well. And there are moments where, maybe I didn't quite rise to the challenge, but it was a challenge nonetheless. Right. And when I feel like I was down here and the challenge is up here, I always tried to move up. And I think in business, it's the same thing. Like, you want to double your sales. All right, this is what you got to do. Yep. And it might seem insurmountable when you're looking at it, but there's a way to get there. And you practice hard, you practice more, and you learn. Like, that was the one thing that I learned from Jim is he read so many books. Yeah. Like, and he's like handing me these books left and right. And I couldn't keep up with them as fast as he was giving them to me, but they all, like, there was a message in all of them. And I would never remember everything in the book, but there's always one message that I remember from certain books. And you take that internalized and you try to build and improve yourself. And here I am today, it's been 12 years since 12 years since I started the business, and, almost 4 years since it's been closed. And, I like, if I wanted to start it over again, and I was joking with my wife the other day, I said, how you feel about starting a cheesecake business again? She's like, no way. I said, well, we'll come up with something. But, I think that entrepreneurial spirit never dies in you. And even though that the business did close, I wouldn't be surprised if I find my way back into another business at some point in my life.
I would believe that. So you were saying earlier about an interview that you were getting really anxious about, right? With the TV cameras on and everything like that. That feeling that you have in the pit of your stomach when you get to that point, it had to be very similar when you're leaving the corporate world to take a jump into the cheesecake world as a small business owner, and it's cool, though, that you mentioned your background about wrestling. I did not know that. And I think the competitive nature, I think those are some of the things that help suppress that anxiety, those anxious feelings. You got a job to do, you need to do it. So when you were exiting the corporate world and heading that direction, jumping off the diving board, so to speak, into the deep end, did you have those same sort of feelings, those same apprehensions? What were your biggest concerns, worries?
Yeah, I mean, I think, being able to be financially self-sufficient was a concern of mine, leaving a very stable job that, was kind of okay. I mean, there's some background there that I won't necessarily get into, but, when your job changes and it's not something that you want for the better, you're looking for a way out. And I always said early on that I wanted to own my own business, and I thought this is the chance to do it. Yeah, I had some anxiety, especially about, all right, how am I going to make money doing this? And how many cakes am I going to be able to make? Am I going to have the bandwidth to do it? And then just facing your friends and your family and explaining them to this, because, I mean, they think you're crazy, whether they say it or not. I know they're supportive, but you can kind of tell when you have a conversation with someone, whether they think you're nuts or not. And just think about that. Hey, I'm quitting my $60,000 a year job at PNC to go make cheesecakes for a living. Yeah. Meanwhile, I have an MBA, I spent, I have 6 years of schooling behind me and all this money that I spent to go to school, and I'm going to make cheesecake now. I could do that without going to school. I mean, because you hear all the comments, but yeah, was definitely some anxiety there. And some pressure, but I never really let it get to me, because it goes back to your point earlier about being resourceful. Like anytime a challenge come up, got to figure it out. Guess what? It's do or die. Right. I think being young and naive also helps too.
Yeah. I think that's interesting too, because personally speaking, my degree was in computer science, and I do not use my degree in my day-to-day anymore. And I always wondered, did I waste time? If I would have went back, would I have gotten a different degree? And so I posed the question to you, like, if you could go back, would you get a different degree? Obviously this wasn't necessarily your objective. You weren't planning to, your degree was, you got an MBA, you were working in the finance industry, and you made this huge jump into cheesecake, and then you made this huge jump into the political atmosphere. What gave you the confidence, and like, what would you do differently if you could?
Yeah. So my undergrad is in sports management. I graduated at Robert Morris, and then I got my MBA shortly after that. But, I always thought that I was going to work in sports. Mm-hmm. Like I didn't want to be a sports agent, but I thought I'd work, at the Pirates or the Steelers. And I interned at the Washington Wild Wings down the street, made some really good connections there. But, after you intern, you realize, what, these hours are terrible. Yeah. Minor league baseball sucks. You don't make any money, and you're at the ballpark 20 hours a day with no break, especially during the season. Yeah. And I was like, this is not, like, hold up, time out here. Yeah. This is not the lifestyle that I want. So then I thought, all right, let's pivot from this. I'm young. I was able to get through college in 2 years, graduated. I was like, I want to get my master's degree. Like, this is a good thing. Like, I really want to be in business. Like, I have a business degree already, but focus more in sports. But what if I just get an MBA? Maybe I could be a consultant. Maybe I can, work on some, just go into business. I feel like there'll be a lot more opportunities. This is about the time of the Great Recession too. Mm-hmm. So you're trying to think, all right, well, how do I get into the workforce after this too? But then you graduate, and then you come, because I went to school at Stetson in Florida, and then I moved back home thinking, all right, well, now what? My plans kind of changed. And I'm like, well, I want to get into finance. Like I really got into the stock market when I was in grad school. Really loved doing that. So I said, you know what, I'm going to try. I'm going to go get my licenses, and I'm going to practice. And I did that. And I did that for about 6 months. And it was one of those things, you go out there and you got to find people who are willing to invest in you. So you're giving them advice on what to do with their finances. And of course, you all run to your friends and family for help. And to their credit, they did help me. But I got into it. I'm like, this isn't exactly what I want to do. So I looked around, and I had another friend, and he said, well, what about this job at PNC? And I'm like, PNC? I don't know if I want to go work at a bank. He's like, well, it's finance related. You can do all this stuff. You can talk about loans, you can talk about investing, you can talk about savings account, whatever you want to do, you can basically do this. It's like, oh, that sounds great. So I interviewed for the job, and I did get it. Although I'm still convinced, I think I kind of made up this relationship I had with the recruiter there. He said that he knew me, but I'm not quite sure how he really knew me. Yeah. But it worked out, and I did. I genuinely liked what I was doing there, and I did it for about, I think, 2.5, 3 years, and I worked out of the branch, and then I was like, I want to go to the corporate world. Like, this is going to be like, I want to go downtown. Like, I want to get out of the branch and work with them. And I applied for a job in treasury management, and I got that. And it was great. Like, I got to work on things. I got to travel around. I was in, Kalamazoo, Michigan, Indianapolis, Rocky Mount, North Carolina, doing bank mergers. I'm sort of like, this is awesome. Yeah. Like, PNC's taking over all these banks, and I'm like one of the leads for my department and helping to merge their operation in. And I love that. And then after a while, things kind of changed, and my role got changed. So we had this whole realignment within the company, and I ended up finding myself in a job that I just wasn't interested in. Mm-hmm. And I said, this isn't what I want to do. The corporate world is very political. And I know, I can say that as a politician. It's different. It's you talk about having to work with your friends across the aisle. Mm-hmm. You kind of know who's with you and who's not just by sometimes, and I don't mean, I'm just generalizing right there. But at work, you just assume we're all on the same team. We all work for the same company. We're all rowing in the same direction. It's not the case.
Sure.
Because everyone's positioning for themselves. I get that promotion. I need to get more money. I want to make the bonus. And sometimes it's a dog-eat-dog world. I mean, it's just how it is, and it's tough. And I was like, I just don't want that. Like, I want to know who's coming at me instead of just having to constantly look over my shoulder. So, that's when I left. And that's about the time I was like, you know what, this is why I want to start my own business. This is a chance to do that and kind of a chance to hit the hard reset button. But getting back to your original question, I had no desire to go into politics. I was approached with this while I was at a booth at the Washington County Fair selling cheesecake. They said, hey, we heard through a friend that you might be interested in running. I was like, well, who told you that? I just never, ever envisioned myself going down this path. And even after I won, I said, I'm going to do this for a couple of terms, maybe 1 or 2, or for as long as the people will have me. I never envisioned that I'd be here 10 years later. But I feel like the work that I'm doing now, I wouldn't trade that for anything in the world, because I know the impact that myself, my staff, and my office have had on the people that I represent, and the amount of help that we've been able to provide. And not that I don't think anyone else in my district is capable of doing that, because there are certainly people out there who are. It's just, I feel like this is the most rewarding work that I've ever done in my life. And I hope that whatever I do after this is just as rewarding, if not more. And I hope I get there. But again, as you go through life, it's weird how things work. Things get thrown in front of you and opportunities present themselves that you just can't plan for.
Sure. And if you don't mind me asking, did you take a pay cut to take your current role, or how did that work out?
I mean, in the long term, maybe. I mean, I think if I went out in the world today or even 5 years ago, I could probably make a lot more money than I'm making now. But at the end of the day, I can't put a price tag on how rewarding it is to help somebody here, or to impact the lives. Like, I'm working on this early literacy reading bill. Like, if I can get that passed this year, that's going to be huge. There's over 1 million students who are going to benefit from that just in 1 year. Just imagine over the course of its existence, if it's signed into law, how many kids will benefit from something like that? Like, I hate to ever talk about legacy, because I know that I'm a blip in time when I look at things. And when I leave, I certainly hope that people miss me, but I'm not expecting statues or roads to be named after me or anything. I don't want anything like that. But to know that I was able to have that kind of impact that helped people along the way, I mean, that to me, I don't know that anything is better out there.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's so interesting, because, I mean, of everyone we've talked to, I can't name one person who really said they got into entrepreneurship for the money. It's like, I want freedom, or I want, to do X, Y, and Z with my life, or this is my end goal. And I think it's the correlations that I see here in this conversation between entrepreneurship and politics seem to be similar, And so I guess the other question I have for you is so Sean touched on how, kind of running a small business helped you in your political career. But, having that the background in running a small business, have you done things in your political career that have tried to help small businesses?
Yeah, I mean, we tried the small business reform. I mean, lowering taxes, trying to get rid of the administrative burden, creating, I think we did this under Governor Wolf. We created kind of a one-stop shop for small businesses, so they could just contact one government office and they would help you with all the other agencies that you may have to deal with. That makes it easier. We've worked on some procurement stuff, although I will say that's pretty boring from a legislative point of view, and probably from your folks out there listening. But government procurement contracts, anytime you're trying to do business with the state, there's a process you have to go through, and giving some special treatment to small businesses is something that we've worked on over time. We have a weird tax structure here in PA, with kind of like, are you a corporation? If you're not a corporation, are you a sole proprietor? Are you taxed at 3.07 or the 8.99%? I mean, it varies, and I'll leave that up to all the accountants out there, but just trying to understand all the other litany of taxes. I just had a constituent in here bring me a list. It's like, this is what I have to present to people when they ask me about starting a business here compared to other states. And I'm like, holy cow, these are things I never thought of. But those are the types of things that we work on now. And then having partnerships too. We have Pitt Small Business Development in the office, I think once a month, and sometimes more, as a resource to people here. And if I hadn't had my own small business, I would have never thought about that, because I use them for help too. So being able to go to a constituent and say, listen, I personally use these guys and I can vouch for them. They do great work. They're a completely free resource for you. Take advantage of it.
I think there are a lot of things you learn as you go. So with the cheesecake business, again, foundational, there were ups and downs and really wonderful things and other things that really, really did keep you up at night. And I think you keep mentioning Jim. Jim was a mutual friend of ours, really good. I know you've known him longer, only because you kind of grew up with Jim Valenti's family. I'll mention his name. In fact, he always comes up in some conversation every time we talk. I'm not kidding. Jim, I think, so all of those, on the ground kind of things that you run into, those are all learning experiences. But having a mentor who can kind of guide you in different directions. Talk about those kind of things. Jim mentored me in so many different ways, and I could never pay for what he, helped me with, what he helped me understand. Talk a little bit about mentorship and how significant that is. And number one, our lives, and I think in small business, small to medium business.
Yeah, I will say that I am a proud VTI, a Valenti trained intellectual. Right. I'm sure you are too. It's funny, even though he's gone, he's still I still hear him in the back of my head at times. But I go back to those first couple years when I had just moved back here from grad school, and just again not knowing really anything, being young and naive, and thinking you know things but don't, and saying things that you probably shouldn't say, and having him kind of like guide me. Like at the time, I don't think I really understood what he was trying to tell me, because I don't think I was ready for it. But now, I can say 5-10 years later, I get it. Yeah. And I think he was brilliant in the way that he approached it, because he was never the kind of guy that was like in your face or ever yelled or ever raised his voice or anything like that. Right. He just wanted to genuinely help you and give you good advice. And it, not that I didn't see that, but I spent a lot of time with him and Dolly and Joe. I grew up with Joe, still very good friends to this day. But having that mentor, like I just remember applying for jobs right after school. And I think I tracked it. I think I went to him one day, Jim, I've applied for 217 jobs. Here's my resume. Here's some of the cover letters that I've written. Like, can you tell me why I'm not getting calls? And he was looking at some of the stuff. I pulled up one of these cover letters, and I can't believe I actually wrote this in a cover letter. I prefer to work smart, not hard. And I was like, I wrote that in a cover letter to an employer, and I'm like, I can't believe I did that. And like, I could see this the smile on his face when he's like, oh my God, what a disaster this is. But he never told me that. Yeah. But you look back on situations like that, and then just dealing. Like even today, I was at the Trolley Museum. We were doing a ribbon cutting for Senator Stout, and him and Senator Stout, he told me so many stories about dealings with Senator Stout. And now being an elected official, I understand those stories a lot more now about what Senator Stout was able to do over the 40 years that he was an elected official in the state legislature, and how he was able to help these small towns. There's a road named after him, for God's sakes, out there. And, Jim worked closely with his family. And that was that was like even this morning, like that was helpful for me to get up there and talk. Like, I had this mentor who I think worked with Senator Stout and was kind of Jim's mentor to a degree. And here I am. It's crazy to think about, Senator Stout's been gone for a while, but here I am at the Trolley Museum doing a dedication to my mentor's mentor.
Isn't that crazy? Like
how small this world is. And I only met Senator Stout one time in my life, but I felt like I knew him because Jim told me at all the stories. But there was always a story there. No matter what you were talking about, what the situation was, whether it was a business story, a personal story, because honestly, I think at the end of the day, he probably helped me more with my personal life than he did with my professional life, but they all bled together. Yeah. And they were all good life stories there. And I think everyone, and that if I could go back in time and tell everybody this, find a mentor, find someone who genuinely cares about you, someone who wants to see you succeed. And quite honestly, it's refreshing to sit back and think about how lucky I was to have someone like him that I could just go talk to. Like, yeah, I definitely like talking to my parents, but there are some things that you don't want to talk to your parents about because you kind of feel like you don't want them to know about. There's nothing bad, but you want like an objective point of view. And that's what I felt like Jim could do. And, even throughout the years, even after I got elected, certainly didn't talk to him as much as I would have liked to later on, but still find myself with those Valenti-isms from time to time. And I look back and I just smile every time. Like this morning was a prime example of that.
That's so cool. And I think a lot of the things that Jim taught me, wouldn't Jim been a great interview on a podcast?
Oh my,
he would have gone crazy.
You'd have to do a whole series on Jim. I don't think you could wrap it up in an hour or two. I mean, he could probably have his own podcast to tell some of the stories he had.
So many things that he shared with me over the years, just about people and relationships and things like that. Those are the same things now that I share with college level students. I'm invited in as a keynote speaker from time to time. Even like high school level, there are kids that are in these entrepreneurial programs, and I'll get in there and there's so many pieces of what I share with them how Jim kind of groomed me, and what an advantage. And to the point, to the audience, pair up with good people, good quality people. Jim never had an agenda either. When I went to Jim's office, it was, Mr. Leopardi, come on down for a café. He would always pronounce coffee, café. I knew exactly what he meant. Pour a hot coffee and you sit down with Jim. Jim and I smoked a lot of cigars together too. Just sit there and reminisce and talk and come up with ideas. And you were a lot of the conversation. Yeah, it was mostly good.
It was a sanctuary. He'd put on some Jimmy Buffett and you'd sit there and you'd have a good conversation and have a good time. I mean, that's what it was. But, from him, I would say one of the best things I ever learned, and just from listening to him, he's like, just sometimes the best thing you can do is just listen to people. Yeah. Just sit there and listen to their story. Because at the end of the day, you don't know what these people are going through. You don't know what they just walked out of. You don't know what kind of life they're leaving. Give them the benefit of the doubt. And by the way Jim told stories and the stories that he told, I have no doubt that he was like a therapist for a lot of people.
Yeah, he was. Well, with given all those different pieces, what can you share? I know we shared a lot, but what other little pieces of magic, forward for small businesses, resources, things like that? How can you, if they approached you, and let them know how they can contact you or your office, how can you help them?
Yeah, so you can reach me in my office here in South Fayette. I'm in Abilene Business Park, but you can go to reportitay.com. You can find all my contact info on there. You can send an email. You can call the office. Happy to sit down with any small business out there, big business too. I'm always looking to recruit businesses to my district. Actually, just having a conversation with a business earlier today. I want businesses here because I want jobs here. I want kids to stay here. I want people to move here. So I want this to be a robust area economically and family sustaining wise. But we do have a lot of resources available from the state. I'm happy to talk one-on-one too. We have the Small Business Development Center from Pitt. Like I said, we have a representative from there. He will meet you here, anywhere. You can call, make an appointment. We can get that set up. There's a bunch of state grants through Department of Economic Development we can put you in touch with. There's a lot of different avenues we can go. Or if you just want to sit down and, shoot the breeze and talk about what your idea is, maybe you have an expansion idea, I'm always happy to do that. But what I always tell people is if you're going to start your own business from scratch is be ready for the work. Be ready for the hard work. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of long hours, but you don't necessarily realize it until you're into it.
Yeah. Well, there was another piece of that conversation that I wanted you to talk about with some of the resources that are available and those different components. But I think without getting into too much detail from my angle, education, you're really passionate about education. And I think the simple fact that you're a dad, you're going to be a dad times 2 coming up real soon. That educational component and giving kids an opportunity to learn, grow, and stay in the area. Talk a little bit about the passion with the education.
Yeah, I mean, when I came into office, I think, that was one of my burning passions was to really help people in the world of education. So some people know this, some don't. I started college when I was in high school. I wasn't gifted, super smart, or had a super IQ or a photograph. I don't have any of that stuff. What I do have is a passion to learn, and I'm a hard worker. Mm-hmm. I completed my first 2 years of college before I graduated high school. I was in and out of Robert Morris at 2.5 years, and I had my MBA by the time I was 21. I worked hard, and I want everyone else out there to have that opportunity. Yeah, I had to bend some rules and, work the system a little bit to get all those college credits while I was in high school, but I was able to do that. So that was my initial passion into education was I wanted that opportunity out there. Dual enrollment credits, the ability to go to a community college and high school programs through Pitt or CMU or whatever college that offers them, just giving high school students the ability to take those classes. First and foremost, getting them exposed to those sorts of classes too. What we do a terrible job in Pennsylvania right now, just our education system in general, is exposing our kids to what's out there, what jobs are in demand, what jobs are even existing. And you leave these kids with graduating high school not really knowing what they want to do, but yet you expect them to go to college and spend all this money. Like it's like having a mortgage. That's another Jim-ism there. Mm-hmm. It's like having a mortgage without a house. Yeah. And you go to college to kind of figure out what you want to do. Shouldn't you figure that out before you go and commit $100,000 before you even have a job? So I've been working on that lately, trying to figure out, all right, career development wise, how can we integrate this? And I think the community college of Beaver County, Fantastic job. If we can model that across the state, I'd do it in a heartbeat. I think what they're doing up there and working with our high schools and getting them micro credentials, career certifications, ready for a job, and like getting job offers the day that they graduate, even before, is amazing. Yeah. Like, why aren't we doing this? And we should be doing high doses of career exposure through elementary school and through middle school. If you ask a first grader what they want to do, they probably say, I want to be a teacher, a doctor, or a fireman, or a policeman. Why? Because that's what they see, or they see what their parents see. We need to really expose these kids to these different career opportunities out there so that we can allow these kids to find their passion. Yep. Because if they're passionate and they're engaged, they're going to be better students because they're going to have an idea of what they want to do, or more importantly, what they don't want to do. Right. Yep. Like there are kids, I remember kids in school, they were terrible at math, but they were good in trades. Why don't we encourage that? We should do more of that. Yeah. You know, I've worked more lately in the realm of early literacy. I'm in year 4. We got the first phase passed, I believe, in 2021 with some teacher development there. But I came across these literacy ratings in Pennsylvania, and I saw that we were slipping. Not that we were in a great position to begin with in 2010. I think we were right around 39%. And when I say 39%, that means 39% of our students leaving 3rd grade could read proficiently. Are we supposed to be proud of the fact that 60% of our kids can't read proficiently by the end of 3rd grade? That's a terrible number.
That's alarming.
Yeah.
That's kind of scary.
And now, you factor in COVID and everything else, and the numbers just came out again. I think we're down to 32%. We're dropping. So obviously what we're doing isn't working. So why do we keep rinse and repeating it? So I've looked at what other states have done. I've worked with some organizations. I work with a lot of education groups, and we came up with this legislation. It's called structured literacy. It's based off the science of reading, actual data, brain scans, different techniques. Other states have been doing this. It's been around for the last decade, and it's seeing phenomenal results across the country. Ohio just invested $150 million into this. Mississippi's been at it for 10 years. They went from one of the worst states for literacy rates to one of the best states in the country with their improvement rates. But it is a marathon. It takes time, money, dedication, and training. And we haven't even started that process here other than some of the teacher training. So we have 500 school districts in the state of Pennsylvania. There's no cookie cutter approach here. But what I do know is curriculum works. I've seen it work. So we're trying right now to get this passed in the legislation and funded this year. If we can do that, we can get this started and implemented by the next school year, not this one coming up, the next school year. And kids in kindergarten through 3rd grade will be subjected to a new curriculum that will hopefully really advance these literacy rates. I've seen my local school district here in Cannon Mac. They implemented this on their own 3 years ago because they saw the writing on the wall. They are seeing phenomenal results. Wow. Literacy rates among 3rd graders are increasing every single day. They're seeing their costs for special education. I think they're just starting to see them decrease too. Because why? Because if you're a confident reader, it bleeds into every other subject. You can read your science book, your math book, all this stuff. But if you can't read those and you can't read, how are you going to expect to pass any of your other classes if you don't understand what the material is? Right. So that affects your self-confidence. I think that's having a huge impact on kids' mental health these days, because that's always been in the forefront of the press right now, is mental health with kids. They can't read. I mean, that's a problem. If they can't read, they're going to have all these self-confidence issues. And we can talk about treating the symptoms, but let's go treat the cause of these problems. And I think this is one of the major causes. So if we can get this accomplished, I think I talked about this earlier, like that would be one of the most meaningful things that I've ever done with my life.
Wow. Yeah, I agree with you. I think, I'll give props to my high school. When I was in high school, they didn't have like a career day, but the past 2 years, been invited back to my high school to talk at their career day. And I teach this class all day on entrepreneurship, and kids come and ask questions like, hey, how do you start a business? How'd you get into this? And yada, yada, yada. But I said to, the staff at my high school that I wish when I was in high school, I had this, because you're right. Kids don't know. And I think you're right. You could put in this box of, I'm not good at math. I'm not great at, social studies or literature, or whatever it may be, and I'm not good enough. I could never be an attorney. I could never be an engineer because I'm not good at math. And there's so many other routes, and it's not portrayed to kids. So I applaud you for kind of highlighting that, because I think that's a huge problem.
Yeah, it's really not. And we're having this big conversation now about career development. I'm like, this is like the perfect timing for all of this right now. And if we rewind a little bit too, one of the things that we talk, I hate to bring it up, but school shootings, school safety, let's say 6 or 7 years ago, and even today, I would say to a slightly lesser degree, it was a priority for a lot of kids. I was getting calls from parents, worried their kids are going to get shot, going to school. So I think it was 2017. I really sat down. I worked with a constituent here. I worked with a lot of the organizations, and we came up with a solid school safety plan. Came up with school safety and security threat assessment teams. Came up with a grant program that still exists to this day from the state. I don't want to take full credit for it, but a lot of the work that I did on that is now law. And I'm very proud of that because we've been able to do things where we've been able to intervene and stop maybe kids who were in crisis and get them help before something escalated. And I'm proud to say that we're like the gold standard here in PA because of the work that we were able to do together on school safety. So, like security, learning, career development. I again, didn't come into office thinking I was going to be this education focused. I thought I was going to be focused more on business, but I started talking about these things and I find myself very impassioned when I talk about them. And it lights me up. I really enjoy that. Even though I don't have any background in education other than my own experiences. I'm not a teacher, don't have a degree in education, which I think is good because you can see it from a different perspective.
Yeah. I don't want to peel in this direction a lot, but Hopewell School District, it was a little over a year ago. It was a hoax. It was a sickening hoax talking about students being shot and things like that. And I lived within walking distance at elementary school and a junior high where, collectively had 4 kids in those schools. And my deal as a parent, as a dad, was to run up there, see what is happening, stay out of the way, because nobody knew whether it was real or not at the time. But there were SWAT teams that were prepared with things. There were military people going in. There were police officers from all over the county that went in. And I think Hopewell School District learned a lot. And thank God it was a hoax, But I think they learned a lot in preparedness. But the stories that my kids shared with me from that day, the things that they had to do, like huddling under desks and just wondering when that knock on the door, is that police officers? Those are really scary things. Yeah. And I think anything we can do forward. I even think like when I look at the way our system is right now, and we help a lot of different countries, we help a lot of different people. But I'm thinking that our veterans, why can't we take veterans, hire them across the United States to get into our school systems and keep them safe, keep them protected? Number one, you're helping people that have already served our nation in great ways that you can never repay. Yeah. And now maybe employ them to keep our school safe, our school systems.
Yeah, it's been discussed at every level. I've been a part of those conversations. It hasn't really come to fruition. I know there's been legislation introduced and passed, but never quite made it across the finish line. I haven't heard too much talks of that yet, but I think the bigger point there is a visible deterrent. Yeah. Having the police there, people see a police car, they're less likely to go because they know that there's opposition there. Yeah. I think it's the same principle having a veteran protect a school there too. People know it's all about hardening the target, hardening your school. And that's what we did with the school safety grants. Like, we shut down. I remember being able to, at my high school, be able to walk in and out of any door that I want. And there's more than one way in and out of every school. Yep. Schools don't have it anymore. All the doors are locked. And if you go outside and an alarm's going off or there's a camera or something that's going to see you, and a lot of that is because of these school safety grants. We harden these targets now so that they're not targets because they're so hard to get into. It's like you don't see too many bank robberies these days because banks have learned. Yeah. They know there's panic buttons, their police are wired in, and that was part of the process that we went through, that when a situation like that occurs, whether it's a hoax or not, that there's coordination between the school and local law enforcement. They know what's going to happen. They've either rehearsed it or there is a written process in what's going to happen so everybody knows what to expect. I don't know at the time if they had that, and I bet you they do now if they didn't, but every school should have that now, because if something like it was a couple years ago, there were spoof calls being made. I think they were able to track it to somewhere in like Lithuania or something. Yeah. Why someone in Lithuania would care about what we're like calling and threatening, a school, I have no idea. but still being able to be prepared for it, knowing what the process is. So you're not on the scene guessing if something is actually happening.
Well, I think like even local police, the men and women who keep us safe every day, throughout the year, I think they learned a lot from this whole process too. Again, I don't want to head into this direction, but the opportunity came up to talk about it for a couple of minutes, and I applaud you for focusing on the education side and trying to pull together some of these grants and things like that will help subsidize some of these programs. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, it's rewarding. I mean, you look at our most precious natural resource, it's our kids. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, we've got to make sure that we're giving them a really good education system, and then we have to give them an environment they can thrive in after they get out of the education system, so they don't move, because that's what's been happening here in Pennsylvania. We keep losing congressional districts. We keep losing population to the southern states. I'm tired of it. Yeah. Pennsylvania is a great place to live. It's a great place to grow up. It's a great place to raise a family. Like, people need to see that. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've lived here my whole life outside of a couple years that I spent in Florida, working on my MBA, I'm sure I'd love to visit some other places, but this is home. Yeah. And I want other people to see that too.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. What do you think, Antonino?
I got another quick question for you. So on a previous episode, we had interviewed Emery Bosman. He runs Armina Stone, and he was an immigrant. He immigrated here, and he had said in that episode that one of the reasons why he wanted to come here is he knew he wanted to start a business, and he said America was like the best place to start a business. As someone who's in politics and helping create laws and legislation, do you believe that? And do you believe that Pennsylvania is a good place to start a business if you're an entrepreneur? And if not, what can we do better as a state to encourage businesses and entrepreneurs to get started here?
So here's what I'll say. So in 1963, my grandparents on my mom's side moved here from Italy, and they immigrated the legal way. Mm-hmm. They started a business. First, my grandfather got a job at I believe it was a plastics factory, and worked there pretty much his whole life. He's still alive. He's since retired. But they started a restaurant. It was an Italian restaurant that they operated, I think, for almost 25 years, and only stopped because it burned down. My grandfather served in the military, served overseas in Korea in the Korean War. When he came back, started his own gas station. So I kind of have a family of entrepreneurs. Like his parents immigrated from Hungary in 1903. So both of my families, immigrants into this country, both saw this country as a land of opportunity that they didn't see back home. And when I look at it, just from the country as a whole, we live in the best country in the world. We live in the country that gives you the most opportunity to succeed, to go from all the way down here of nothing to all the way up here at the very top to have everything you ever wanted. I don't know that there's a country in this world where you can say that, where it won't take generations to get from the bottom to the top. You can do that here in your own lifetime. When it comes to Pennsylvania, I think we do an okay job. I think that we can do better. My hope is that we will do better, but it's still not a bad place to come. I think it's a good place to have a business, to start a business. And I think one of those reasons is because we have a wonderful workforce here. Mm-hmm. We have people who are hard-working people. White collar, blue collar, doesn't matter. People work hard here, and we have a reputation for that. So you will have a workforce here to pick from to help your business grow and thrive into the future. I mean, I think as an entrepreneur myself, I mean, that's what you're looking for, people who are going to buy into your dream and help you grow your business. And I think we have those people here. We can make the environment a little bit better, and I hope that we do that. But yeah, I mean, if we're running a commercial for Pennsylvania businesses, come on in. Like, I'm looking for development. You got money, you got a business. I want to talk to you. I want you here.
Yeah. Good. That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, Pennsylvania's home for me too. So I would love to see more, businesses. And on a personal note, Sean's heard this story, but I grew up, I knew I either wanted to get into the film industry or the software industry. And I kind of, with my entrepreneurial journey, have gotten into both. And I always thought in my head, I'm going to graduate high school, go to college, move out to California, I'm going to be involved in Hollywood or Silicon Valley or something like that. And everyone told me, you don't have to go there. Pittsburgh is going to be the next Silicon Valley, the next Hollywood. And I've been waiting for that to happen, and it's like slowly getting there. And it's like, I'm just curious from your perspective as to, how do we as a state or a city or a county get there?
Well, I think that has taken a little bit of time, from the decline of the steel industry to being a medical hospital powerhouse insurance company. to more of a service-oriented economy in this area. You see that now. We are a mini Silicon Valley. We have all the major tech companies here. You want to know why? Because CMU's here.
Right.
And they're recruiting from them. We have almost all the autonomous vehicle shops. They all have a presence here. I mean, it's not as big as it is in Silicon Valley, but they're here. You know why they're here? Because the cost of living is so much lower, and they have access to really great talent right out of school. I mean, it is so much. I think there was a guy from, one of the autonomous vehicles, Uber. Uber was here, and I know they've kind of changed hands a couple times out here. But he said, I could get an office over here for like $400. I could buy the office for like $450,000, or I could stay in my office in California where I'm paying like $3.5 million a year just in maintenance, not including what I have to pay for upkeep. He says, why wouldn't I come here? And they keep the pay the same. So when you get here, the people feel like, well, I just got a big raise, even though I didn't get one because the cost of living is lower.
Right.
You know, this area has always kind of been, I want to say, in a bubble when it comes to real estate, or a little bit guarded more so than the rest of the country, but it's been a more affordable place to live. Sure. And there's more opportunity here. And I think the area has done a really good job over the last 20 years of changing that dynamic of what Pittsburgh is. We transformed from that steel industry to more of a service-oriented economy. But, you know, I kept hearing years and years, you know, we're going to have a need for 75,000 base computer programmers in this area. That's a lot.
It is a lot.
That's a lot. I mean, you look at all the IT companies that are the IT companies and the computer software like Microsoft is here, Google, Apple, they're all here. I mean, they're spread out, but they're here, and there's a reason why they're here. And I'd like to see that kind of expand. And you know, I've been saying the same thing about the Southern Beltway. There's a ton of opportunity, and you've seen the sprawl from the airport all the way down to the county line, from Allegheny to Washington County. You're going to see that a little bit more. During COVID, we saw some supply chain issues because we have a lot of manufacturers of American companies that are in China, and we saw that effect that it had on their ability to get things over here. And I'm like, guys, come on over. We have a wealth of energy here, a lot cheaper than what you're probably getting over there. You don't have to worry about the Chinese Communist Party holding up your stuff. Why not here? Or even bring some of your cloud servers out here. Again, cloud servers are huge users of energy. Why not come out here? We have cheap, reliable energy. It's a perfect place, right off the Southern Beltway. Provides great tax revenue for our local schools and partnership opportunities for kids to learn. I mean, it's a wonderful opportunity. And I mean, to your point, I've heard that story a lot where people are like, I'm gonna have to go to California, or I'm gonna have to go to Texas, or I'm gonna have to go to Florida. I was like, why?
Right.
The jobs are here. You might have to look a little bit harder, but at least you're still home.
Are you concerned? Sorry to cut you off. Are you concerned at all about like the price of living increasing? 'Cause I know that is a lot of people I talk to. That is a big incentive for moving businesses here in Pittsburgh, or getting like the tech companies that come here, is that price of living. You know, where I've lived, my rent has increased, and you know, are you concerned about that at all? Do you think that's gonna be a deterrent going forward?
No, I think you'll just see more of a sprawl outward.
Okay.
Maybe where they set up, like maybe in the Strip District in the city, maybe they're starting to move out more into the suburbs, because that's where the workforce probably lives. I'm not saying all of it, but I'm starting to see that sprawl, which isn't a bad thing. It lower tax rates out here, especially in Washington County compared to Allegheny County. So it makes sense to come out here. And, you know, we're looking at a development that's like supposed to be like $5.5 billion over the course of the next 10 years off the Southern Beltway. I think it's reasonable to see. I mean, inflation, of course, is a worry for a lot of people, but that impacts everybody everywhere. But as you develop areas, they become more popular. So, of course, that drives up the rent and everything else in that area. But as that gets more saturated, people have to move out, and it has a cascading effect. Like when you look at this area, I call it kind of the airport corridor, but starting here in my neck of the woods from South Point all the way up around the airport up into Wexford, you stretch around even into parts of Beaver County. That whole stretch over the last 10 years has grown at a 25 to 30% clip in population.
Yeah. Wow. I'm surprised it's not even higher, because if you jump on the 576 from the airport heading towards Washington, when you see those Amazon distribution centers and the amount of space that those have taken, they're here for a reason. They just didn't. I mean, logistics make sense because you're close to the airport, you're right on the interstates, and they took over massive amount, hundreds of thousands of square feet, plus all the vehicles. You see everything coming in and out of it. There's a lot happening, and I suspect that's just going to continue to grow on that corridor. There's a lot of land to develop, and they're doing a nice job, a responsible job.
Yeah, and the best thing about that is that was all strip mine property.
Yeah.
It really can't be used for anything else other than commercial development. and it's all property that needed to be remediated. And now it's revenue producing, it's family sustained job producing. I mean, it's been a win-win. I mean, the foresight, I mean, I know the Southern Beltway system was basically put together in like the 1980s, and we're finally getting it halfway done at this point. It's 2024. But again, that's back to Senator Stout. I've heard a lot of stories about his vision for that. But that has really led to a lot of economic growth in this area. And I think population growth too, which is what we're looking for.
Yeah, I agree.
What do you think? We took up a lot of Jason's time today where he could be
Making
doing
a
other
change.
things, but he chose to be with us, which is great. That word of advice, for somebody checking in and listening to this.
Yeah. So
as an entrepreneur. Go ahead.
So if you could give one word of advice to a young entrepreneur who wanted to start a business, what would that be?
I'll make it 2 words. Do it. You'll never regret it. You look at it, I look at it from a risk reward perspective. Being young, you're never going to have less risk in your life. And even older, I'm not, if you're in your 50s and your change of life and you want to start, I encourage you to do it, because it's never a bad bet to bet on yourself. Never. Especially if you believe in yourself and you believe in your idea. Even if you don't know how you're going to make it happen, you'll figure it out.
Interesting interview, because you had the corporate exposure, you had the small business exposure, now you got this exposure for public servant, and all the information, the wealth of knowledge you pick up during those years. What's the future for Jason looking like?
That's a good question. I feel blessed for the opportunities I've had. I mean, I could have never mapped this out, but the impact that I've had on people, the people that I've gotten to meet, the experiences that I've gotten to that I've had, I mean, it's been amazing, and it's all kind of happened condensed from the time I started my business to this, and stories before that. But I'm hoping for a few more terms. There's a few more things I'd like to get done legislatively and things I'd like to get done locally. But after that, we'll see. I think the future's bright. At least I believe that. Looking forward to spending a lot more time with my kids and my family. I always said that was going to be my top priorities when I had a family. They were number one. Everything else will come after that. But I'm really excited. These last 10 years have been fantastic. Actually, even longer than that. They've been great. And I've been very fortunate with the opportunities I've had. I don't want to say that I'm lucky. I am definitely lucky. There's been a lot of hard work behind the scenes. I don't think that, going through school was easy. And I don't want people to think starting a business is easy. It is hard. But the sooner you realize it's a lot of hard work and you're willing to do that, I think it makes it a lot easier moving forward. Right. But yeah, I'm very, very blessed to have had the opportunities I've had, and I'm hoping I get a few more.
Well, I think that you're proof that anything here is possible that you set your mind to. Yeah. You could have stayed at PNC and, probably done really well there in that career, but you chose to go different routes, and opportunities keep popping up for you. And we're thankful you joined us today.
Yeah, take a chance. I look at my background and where I came from. I'm from the middle of nowhere in Washington County in Avella. My parents are great. They're great parents. My mom worked multiple jobs when I was a kid growing up to make ends meet. I don't come from a middle class, upper class family with generational wealth. I don't come from that at all. And I'm glad that I don't. Not there's anything wrong with that. But I've had to work for everything that I've gotten, and I think you appreciate it more. And I think it really helps when you have 2 really good parents who are always in your corner and supportive, and cheer you on, even though they think you're crazy sometimes, and that's fine. Yeah. But they're always there for you. And I think that's been a big difference for me. Having good friends, we talked about Jim. I have a good core group of friends who really have an amazing wife who puts up with my with my nonsense. But yeah, I feel pretty fortunate about where I've been and what I've been able to do. And I think if I can do this, anybody can do it.
Sure. That's cool. Well, listen, appreciate you giving us some time this afternoon. I think this was a great interview, and look forward to hearing more from you in the future.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. It's an honor.
Yeah, it was our pleasure.
Thanks.